Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the sweaty, anxious crawl space of your own mind, where morality drips like candle wax and your best intentions are losing a fistfight with rent. You're in St. Petersburg, 1860s, but honestly, it could be any city right after payday ran out and shame moved in. The air is thick, your thoughts are heavier, and what you're planning, well, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The ceiling presses down on you. Like an accusation. The air in your attic room is stale enough to chew, like the kind of bread that outlasts empires. Dust floats in the light, which isn't really light. Just a suggestion that somewhere beyond these walls, the sun still exists. You're on the sofa, if you can call this lumpy assemblage of burlap and indignity a sofa, staring at the same cracked plaster you stared at yesterday. Sweat clings to you. It's not heat so much as guilt that makes you uncomfortable, or maybe it's both. You're hungry, but you don't even look at the crust of black bread on the table. You're tired, but closing your eyes means dreaming of pawnbrokers and spilled coins. Your boots are by the door, already tied. You left them that way on purpose, like you might just jump up and leave at any moment. But you don't. You sit and simmer. Somewhere in the street below, a dog yaps, then whimpers. It's not important, but it feels symbolic. You mutter aloud, like you've rehearsed this monologue in the mirror 100 times. It's not murder, not really. It's necessary. Even the walls don't believe you. You wipe your face with your sleeve. The sleeve is stiff with yesterday's sweat, or last week's. Who knows anymore? The clock ticks too loudly. You imagine throwing it out the window, or throwing yourself, and still, your mind returns to that apartment. To her, the pawnbroker. She's barely 5 feet tall, brittle as burnt sugar, mean as a street preacher with no followers. But she has the rubles. She has them, and you do not. History fact incoming. Because yes, even now you need context. In 1860s Russia, student, life was brutal. Tuition wasn't even your biggest problem. You paid for knowledge with your health, your sanity, and frequently the loss of your teeth. Scholars still argue whether Dostoevsky was writing political allegory, or just processing his own PTSD from Siberian exile. You're not concerned with that. You're concerned with whether your landlord is going to knock again today. And then there's your theory, the one you thought up at 3 a.m. during a bout of philosophical heartburn, that some people, extraordinary people, can step over laws the way others step over puddles. That if Napoleon could invade a continent, surely you can borrow a little from a wicked old woman. You tell yourself this while staring at the ceiling. It doesn't feel true, but it sounds intelligent, and sometimes that's all we need. There's something crawling inside you, not metaphorical, an actual insect. You slap your arm and miss, and then somehow that turns into a full-body twitch. Like your skin is a costume trying to leave without you. You exhale through your nose and drag yourself upright. Your coat's too warm, but it gives you structure. You throw it over your shoulders anyway. As you do, a button pings off and disappears into the dust under your bed. You stare after it, like it was a sign. Maybe it was. Maybe you're unraveling in layers. Outside, the sky is bruised blue. The city smells like horse sweat, coal smoke, and unresolved moral dilemmas. You step onto the stairs, counting each creak like a priest counting sins. 1, 2, 3. Don't think about the axe. You think about the axe. You tucked it inside your coat, wrapped in rags. Its handle cold against your ribs like an accusation from God. You remember where you found it, in the woodpile behind your building. Just lying there, like it had been waiting for you. Fringe tidbit. Russian peasants used to believe tools had souls. You start to wonder what this one thinks of you. The courtyard is a geometry of cracked cobblestones and shouting neighbors. You nod at the tailor who never smiles and pretend you're going for a walk. You are. It's just a specific kind of walk. You pass the bakery and smell cinnamon. Your stomach lurches with nostalgia and nausea. The smell reminds you of your sister's hands when she used to bake on Sundays, before the debt, before the plan. You pass the cathedral and don't cross yourself. A grandmother notices and spits. That's fair. The city is a maze of decay and distraction. Someone is playing violin badly in an alley. Someone else is being chased by a goose. You step aside for both. You realize suddenly how many things are happening right now that have nothing to do with you. That if you vanished today, the violin would still screech and the goose would still chase. You try not to read too much into it. Up ahead, the street narrows, tilts uphill. That apartment is near the top. You know the number, the door, the exact floorboard that creaks outside it. You've rehearsed the knock, the rhythm, the innocent look. You've even practiced what you'll say if she opens the door too quickly. I just came to ask about... You haven't figured out the rest. As you walk, the city seems to press against you. Not hostile, just observant. Like it's waiting to see what you'll do. Historians still argue whether Dostoevsky intended this part of Crime and Punishment to be real-time descent or dreamlike allegory. But right now, for you, it's both. The world feels like soup. You're not walking. You're swimming through intentions. You pause at a corner where a brass samovar sits abandoned on a crate. You stare at your reflection, distorted, ghostly. You look like someone who's already made the decision. That scares you more than the axe. Then you blink, and suddenly, you're at the building. The door glares at you like it knows what's hidden beneath your coat. Your throat's dry. Your legs feel like someone else's. You step inside, up the stairs, 1 creak, 2, 3. The hallway stretches like a bad dream. You reach your door. You raise your hand to knock, and we'll pause here, just for a moment. Let the sweat cool. Let the breath slow, because what you're about to do next will crack the world open. And you, poor thing, still think you're in control. In this part, you knock, but your knuckles hesitate, hovering above the wood like they're waiting for moral approval from the universe. You expect some thunderclap, some voice in your head screaming, "Don't." But it's just quiet, eerily quiet. That quiet you get in hospitals or libraries just before something irreversible happens. You finally knock, 3 soft raps, almost apologetic, like you're a kid asking for a lost ball back. Footsteps shuffle inside. Her footsteps. You know them, too well, sharp, measured like someone who's never been late and never forgiven those who are. You hear the rattle of a keychain, the scrape of the bolt. 1 breath. 2. She opens the door. The pawnbroker looks at you like you're a smudge on her clean floor. She's exactly as you remember, pinched face, sharp elbows, eyes like a crow that's memorized your worst secrets. Her hair is pulled back so tight it might be holding her thoughts hostage. You wonder what she sees when she looks at you. Probably just another student with desperation wrapped in too many layers. You stammer something about needing to pawn a silver cigarette case. You don't own a cigarette case. She doesn't care. She steps aside. The door closes behind you with a sound that feels like a trap being set. Inside, her apartment is a museum of unwanted things. Dented watches, cracked rings, an actual accordion with 1 key stuck. The air smells of varnish, mildew, and disdain. She gestures for you to put the fake item on the table, her lips pursed like she's tasting sour cherries. And for one moment, you think maybe you'll just leave. Just go. Sell your coat, starve a little longer. Let someone else be the anti-hero for once, but you don't. Because the axe is already in your hand. You didn't even notice pulling it out. That's the scariest part. Your fingers curl around. The handle like it belongs there, like this has already happened. Time stutters, your breath goes shallow. She turns her back to inspect a ledger. You move and everything becomes a blur. 1 hot, silent moment, then another, then a third. The axe is heavy, but your guilt is heavier. You don't even feel the impact at first, just the motion. Like chopping firewood, like breaking a lock. Then she's on the floor, not moving. You hear the hum of flies even though they're not there yet. And you think, somewhere deep and sick, that was too easy. But that's when it gets worse, because there's another sound now. Someone else in the apartment. You freeze. It's her sister. The quiet one. Gentle with that sad kind of nervous smile. She's just walked in. She sees the body. She sees the axe. She screams. You panic. There's no plan for this. You weren't supposed to hurt anyone else. You shout something. Get back. But it comes out slurred like you're underwater. She backs into the hallway, fumbling at the door. And you follow. There's no poetry here. No cinematic framing. Just breath and blood and a door that won't open fast enough. You do it again. Because you're afraid. Because you think you have to. Because now it's real. You don't remember how many times afterward there's silence. Not peace, just absence. Like the room forgot how to make sound. You stand there, coated in something warm and unforgiving, listening to the city outside, still functioning like none of this just happened. A dog barks. A bell rings. Someone laughs. You feel insane, but you also feel nothing. And that's worse. Now comes the part no one prepares you for. What do you do after? You rush. You pocket what coins you can find. A chain, a locket, a few rubles, wrapped in cloth. It's all pitiful. Not even enough for a decent month's rent. Your fingers are shaking. You forget where you're putting things. A clock ticks. You imagine it judging you. You wipe the axe handle with the hem of your shirt. Too late. There are prints everywhere, smudges. The room smells like metal and wet wool. You open a window, then slam it shut. Too suspicious. You start toward the door, stop, go back, clean a little, then stop again. There's too much to think about. Too many details. You leave. You descend the stairs faster than you should. You expect someone to stop you. A shout. A hand on your shoulder. But no one does. The sunlight outside hits you like a slap. You're blinking, squinting, stunned by the idea that the world is still here. You half expect the sky to be red, the air to taste like ash, but it's just St. Petersburg. Same smell. Same sounds. You walk fast, not running, that would be suspicious. Just fast enough to feel like you're moving away from something. Your hands are tucked in your coat. You feel them tremble. You focus on each step. Left, right, left, right. You try to remember how you used to walk before today. You pass a flower vendor. She offers you a carnation. You almost laugh. The absurdity of it. A blood-colored flower right now? You shake your head and keep walking. Your ears are buzzing. You're not sure if it's adrenaline or just your brain short-circuiting. Mainstream historical fact. During this time, Russian crime investigation was notoriously poor, mostly because police were underpaid, undertrained, and more interested in bribes than clues. You know this. It should comfort you. It doesn't, because you didn't plan for the after. You duck into a side alley and vomit. It's mostly bile. The act doesn't cleanse you, you just feel empty and disgusted. You sit on a crate trying to breathe, and then you realize your sleeve? It's soaked. The axe handle was wrapped, but your sleeve, there's blood. You panic, you rip it off. Literally tear the cuff at the seam and toss it in a gutter. Someone might find it. Match it to you. You think about going back for it, then think better. There's a moment, tiny blink, and you'll miss it, where you feel like laughing. Like this whole thing is so stupid, so badly planned, it could almost be a sitcom. Student tries murder. Forgets about evidence, but you don't laugh. You walk again, slowly now, blending in, eyes forward. Inside your head, though, a riot. You get back to your building. You nod at the tailor again. He nods back. Doesn't notice anything strange. You climb the stairs. Each one feels like a funeral drum. Back in your room, you lock the door behind you and collapse. Not onto the bed, but the floor. It's cooler down here, less judgmental. You stare at the ceiling. It's still cracked. You remember how this morning you were here, sweating and scared and debating morality. Now you're here, sweating and scared. And by something else entirely. Fringe tidbit. Some old Russian folklore said that when you take a life, you gain part of their soul. If that's true, you're 2 souls heavier tonight. No wonder your chest hurts. You think about confessing. You really do. Just going to the police, ending the farce. But the fear grips you like a parasite. You imagine the trial, the looks, the cold. Historians still argue whether Raskolnikov, your fictional mirror, committed his crime for philosophy or just sheer desperation? You know the answer for yourself. It was both. The light in your room fades. You realize you've been lying, there for hours, not thinking, just being, like a stone, or a stain. Night falls. Somewhere, someone is lighting a lamp. Someone is loving someone else. The world keeps going. You, however, are still stuck here, sweating, trembling, alone with your brilliant plan. You wake up to pounding. It's not in your head, although that's pounding too. No, this is real, physical. Knuckles on wood. A heavy, unforgiving rhythm hammering at your door. You jolt upright, tangled in your blanket like you tried to strangle yourself with guilt overnight. Your breath catches in your throat. For a second, you forget where you are, when it is, who you're supposed to be. The pounding continues. You think, it's them, the police, the neighbors, the tailor downstairs. Someone saw, someone knows. Your whole body tenses. You can already feel the shackles, the courtroom, the clink of the cell door. You see yourself growing old in prison, mumbling about pawnbrokers to a wall. You shuffle to the door on legs made of fog. Your hand trembles as you reach for the knob. You don't open it right away. You whisper to the door, "Who is it?" No answer. You try again. Louder. Finally, a voice. "Landlord." You almost collapse. Relief. Shame and residual fear swirl in your gut like a cursed smoothie. You open the door a crack. The landlord's face looms through it, pale, slightly sweaty, with a touch of bureaucratic boredom. He just wants the rent. You nod. You say you're sick. You cough a little for effect. He recoils slightly. Good. Let him think it's cholera. He mutters something about coming back in 2 days, then clomps down the stairs like the world owes him money. The door closes, and you're safe. For now. You collapse into the chair by your desk, your whole body melting into it like butter on hot bread. But comfort doesn't come. The axe may be gone, tucked away, cleaned, hidden under a loose floorboard, but it's still there in your mind, pressing into the back of your skull. You've done it, but now you have to live with it. The guilt is weird, not constant. It doesn't sit next to you and whisper like some kind of Victorian ghost. No, it's sneakier than that. It disappears for hours, then shows up at the worst moments. When someone says the word accident, when you see a red scarf, when you hear someone laugh a little too sharply, you begin to drift. Not just mentally, but socially, physically, spiritually. You stop eating properly. You barely sleep. You avoid people like they can read your sin in your posture. Mainstream historical fact. In Tsarist Russia, guilt wasn't just psychological. It was theological. Sin and crime were indistinguishable in the public mind. Confession wasn't just a spiritual act. It was often the only path to psychological survival. You're not sure you believe in any of that, but still it lingers. You try to act normal, that's the worst part. You force yourself into the street, into cafes, into lectures. You nod when people talk. You smile at acquaintances. You make a joke, one joke, and everyone laughs. That makes you want to scream, because you know you don't deserve to laugh. And yet here you are, pretending, performing, like a walking lie in human shape. And then, just when you start to think you might be okay, you hear the news. A double murder. A pawnbroker and her sister, in the papers, on the lips of every busybody, every gossip, every street corner philosopher. You listen with your head tilted, like it's a play someone else wrote. They don't have a suspect. But people are curious. Was it political? Was it a robbery? Was it revenge? You can't help but eavesdrop. At one cafe, a student declares that it was probably a revolutionary statement against the greed of the petty bourgeoisie. You want to correct him, but your throat closes. Another says the killer must have been insane, completely deranged. Only a madman would use an axe, he laughs. You sip your tea and nod. Too much? You're nodding too much. You leave. Back in your room, you realize no one suspects you. That should bring relief, but it doesn't. Because now, you know the worst truth of all. You got away with it. You were expecting punishment. You thought guilt would be loud. You thought the heavens would part, point a glowing finger and say, "There he is." Seize him. Instead, nothing. Just life. Fringe tidbit. In 19th century Russian superstition, if a murder went unpunished, the victim's soul would haunt the town for 40 days. You start counting, just in case. But the dreams come sooner than that. You dream of footsteps, your room, of blood dripping through the ceiling, of voices saying your name in sing-song. And when you wake up, your mouth is dry and your heart is galloping like a stolen horse. You start to see things, faces in the window, the glint of an axe on a shelf where nothing's been placed. You hear your name whispered in crowds. Once you think you see the pawnbroker crossing the street, you follow her for half a block before realizing it's a stranger. You're unraveling. The real punishment, it turns out, isn't a jail cell. It's this, the constant crawling awareness that you are not who people think you are, that you're wearing a mask made of manners and stitched with lies, that the real you, the one who lifted an axe in a stranger's apartment, is still underneath, watching. Historians still argue whether Dostoevsky's portrayal of psychological guilt is exaggerated or painfully accurate. You could answer that question right now, but no one's asking you. One evening, your friend Razumikin shows up. You forgot he existed, which is unfair. He's loyal, generous, more talkative than a caffeinated professor. He barges in with food. Questions, concern. You try to act normal. Again. But he sees through it, not the whole truth, not yet, but enough to say, "You look like death playing dress-up." You try to laugh it off. He doesn't laugh back. He insists on staying. He talks. About philosophy, reform, vodka, anything to distract you from your obvious decay. He even reads to you, badly but with gusto. And you start to feel something soft. Not forgiveness, not peace. But maybe the idea that those things exist. You still haven't been caught. But you're no longer sure that means you're free. You lie in bed after he leaves, the food untouched, the candle flickering shadows across the ceiling like ghosts doing interpretive dance. You whisper into the dark, "What now?" No one answers, but you already know. The axe may be hidden, but the guilt isn't. You don't need a sentence, you're already serving one. You start walking, not toward anything in particular, just away. From the walls of your room, from the smell of sweat-soaked sheets, from the sensation that your own skull is trying to crush your brain in a guilt vice. You need movement. Something about the rhythm of your boots on cobblestones helps. It gives you the illusion of progress. Like if you walk far enough, you might leave the murder behind. As if sins have mileage limits. The streets of St. Petersburg stretch before you, wet, uneven and humming with that early evening soundscape. Dogs barking, a baby crying, someone selling cigarettes 3 corners away. You blend in, a man in a coat, a student with too many thoughts. You pass an old woman feeding pigeons. She looks up and smiles at you. You flinch, because she looks like, not exactly, but close enough that your heart seizes for half a beat. You're not well. That much is obvious now, even to you. It's not just the lack of sleep or the constant fear that someone will shout, "Murderer," in the middle of a bakery. It's something deeper, something loosening in you, a fracture, widening. You find yourself drawn toward the Neva River. You always end up there when your thoughts turn sharp. The current is strong today, curling and snapping against the stone embankments like it's in a bad mood. You stare down at it thinking how easy it would be. Just a lean, a slip, a vanishing, but you don't. Instead, you sit. A bench, damp and chipped, probably named after someone who donated potatoes to the war effort. You sit, and you try to breathe. Mainstream, historical fact. The Neva has claimed hundreds of lives over the centuries. Suicides, yes, but also accidents, duels, and the occasional fall helped along by someone else's boot. Dostoevsky himself lived close to this river, wrote beside it, walked its banks when dreaming of devils. It doesn't comfort you. The wind picks up, threading through your coat like it's looking for secrets. You close your eyes, and she's there. Not the pawnbroker. The sister. The one who didn't need to. Her face is soft in your memory. Kind, almost. Too kind. You try to remember the details. Did she have a mole by her jaw? Was she wearing boots? You don't know. You didn't look. That's the part that eats at you. Not the blood. Not the silence afterward. Not even the smell. That metallic soaked carpet smell you still can't forget. No, it's that you didn't look. You just reacted. Like an animal. Fringe tidbit. Russian wolves, when cornered, will often chew off their own leg to escape a trap. It's rare, but it happens. You wonder what you'll have to chew off to get out of this. You walk again. Your legs carry you without asking permission. Down crooked lanes, past shops with dusty windows, past a group of boys playing with a stick and a tin can. One of them looks up at you, really looks, and for a second you think he knows. But then he laughs and throws the can, and the moment passes. You turn into a narrow alley, and that's when you hear it. Footsteps behind you, you stop. They stop. You walk, they walk. Your stomach turns to stone. You don't look back, not yet. You speed up. You take 2 lefts and a sharp right. The sound follows, heavier now, more confident. You finally glance over your shoulder. No one. You laugh, short, bitter paranoia. It's growing in you like a mold. You try to shake it off, but it clings. You end up at a chapel. You don't remember choosing to go there. It's small, half hidden behind an apothecary. The kind of place you only notice if you're looking for absolution on a discount. You step inside. The air is thick with incense and regret. Candles flicker like they're tired of holding light. A woman in a scarf is crying near the altar. You don't go near her. You don't kneel. But you stand there, unmoving, pretending that maybe standing counts for something. Historians still argue whether Russian Orthodoxy's obsession with suffering helped preserve the empire or doom it. In your case, it's hard to say. But you're definitely obsessed with your own suffering. That counts for something, right? You whisper, not a prayer, just words. I didn't mean to. No one answers. Not even the priest. You leave before anyone can make eye contact. Back on the street, it's darker now. Lamps are being lit one by one like someone painting over the city with spots of gold. You wander. Eventually, you end up outside her building. You didn't plan this. It's like your feet have a death wish. You stare up at the windows. One is boarded now, someone hammered wood where glass used to be. You picture the landlord inside muttering about property values. You don't go in, but you don't leave either. You stand there for 20 minutes, maybe more, just staring. Then, a cough behind you. You turn, a man, thin, wrapped in a scarf. He's looking at you, curious. You knew her? He asks, nodding toward the building. You don't answer. He shrugs. Terrible thing. But some people think she had it coming. Your mouth opens, but nothing comes out. She was cruel, he adds. A parasite, taking from the poor. They say whoever did it, maybe it was justice. Then he walks away. You stand frozen. The word justice bouncing around your brain like a pinball. That's what you told yourself, wasn't it? That it was necessary, philosophical, mathematical. Remove one useless, harmful life to improve others. But the math doesn't add up. You didn't redistribute her wealth. You didn't save. Anyone you just killed, you return to your room. Sit at your desk, and you start writing. Not a confession, not yet. Just thoughts scribbled onto scraps of paper, torn corners. The backs of old lecture notes. You write about theory, about utilitarianism, about whether a man has the right to act. As executioner, mainstream historical fact. Utilitarianism, championed by thinkers like Bentham and Mill, was never meant to be applied with an axe in a tenement hallway. But somehow, here you are, you write for hours. It doesn't make you feel better, but it's something. You start imagining conversations, not real ones, just debates, between you and someone smarter, kinder, maybe her, maybe the sister. You explain yourself. They listen. They ask, but why? And you don't know. That's the worst part. You realize the only thing keeping you afloat is this illusion that you had a reason. Take that away and you're just another killer. Fringe tidbit. In some ancient Slavic tribes, murderers weren't executed, they were exiled, forced to wander alone, marked by a black thread stitched into their cloak. You wonder if anyone would notice if you did that now. Maybe you already have. You wake up to voices, not in your head this time, real ones, drifting up through the thin floorboards from the flat below. A woman's voice, tired and sharp-edged, and a deeper one trying too hard to sound kind. You catch bits and pieces. Can't. Afford another delay, but he's not well. Always an excuse. You press your pillow over your ears. It's not about you, but it could be. Everything feels like it's about you lately. Every stare, every overheard word, every door creak that sounds like judgment. It's exhausting, carrying your crime around, like a loaded backpack. And no one even knows what's in it. You could be walking around with bricks or stolen books or 10 pounds of guilt shaped like a human head. You finally get up, your joints groaning like they've aged a decade in your sleep. It's time to leave again. Not just your room, your whole plan, the theory, the experiment, the belief that you were something more than average. That you could act outside morality like some Napoleonic god figure. You were wrong, but now you have to figure out what's left of you. You step out into the street, and for once, the air feels bearable. It smells like soot, cabbage, and the faint trace of someone's soap. Evidence that people around here are still trying. You're not sure you are. You end up at Razumikin's again. He doesn't even look surprised when you appear on his doorstep like a half-drowned stray. Just pulls you in, sits you down, and shoves tea into your hand like it's holy. You smell like newspaper and dread, he says. You grunt. That's the best you can do. He talks. That's what he's good at. He tells you about the university, about someone slipping on a frozen radish at the market, about a cat that's been haunting his windowsill for a week straight. Then he pauses, eyes you sideways. You're thinking of confessing. You freeze. How? Did you? He shrugs. You've got that look like someone who thinks the truth will save them, or at least stop the dreams. You don't deny it. He leans forward. Do it or don't. But if you're going to, do it completely. None of this half-truth, maybe I snapped nonsense, own it. He stares at you so hard it's like he's peeling layers off your soul. You nod, finally. You don't even know if you mean it. Mainstream historical fact. In Imperial Russia, confession could sometimes reduce a sentence, but only if it was given willingly and before arrest, a legal mercy for the tortured conscience, or a clever way to cut trial costs. Historians still argue which. You leave Razumikin's with his words echoing in your head. Do it completely. You don't go to the police station. Not yet. You wander. And once again, like a dog sniffing out its own crime, you return to the alley. Her alley. The building's front door is open. Police tape is long gone. Life has returned to it. Someone's hung a flower pot from the second story. Window like it can distract from the lingering aura of murder. You climb the stairs, your hand on the rail, your feet where they were that day. At the top, the hallway is empty. The flat is locked, of course, but you stand in front of it anyway, and you imagine the creak of the floor as you stepped in, the weight of the axe, the way the room seemed to hold its breath just before it all happened. You can still feel it. Your hands start shaking. You turn around and run, down the stairs, into the street, past confused pedestrians who don't realize they're sharing space with a ghost of a man. You end up at the police station. You stand outside it. Just stand. Fringe tidbit. In 1860 St. Petersburg, most police stations were underfunded and overrun, manned by clerks who moonlighted as detectives, medics and bureaucrats. Sometimes people confessed and no one knew what to do with them. There are actual records of confessors being told, "Come back tomorrow." You don't go in. You walk away. Again. Cowardice? Maybe. But maybe also clarity. Because you realize something. You don't want to confess to the police. You want to confess To her, her family, you dig around for days, asking questions without seeming too interested. You make up stories. You were a customer, a neighbor, an old friend from the market. Eventually, someone tells you where the sister's funeral was held, and from there you find her niece, a girl, maybe 16, quiet. Wears a brooch that looks too old for her, probably a hand-me-down. She works at a bakery selling rolls and smiling like the world doesn't owe her an explanation. You stand across the street and watch her, every morning, for a week. You don't know what you're waiting. For courage? A sign? One day she trips and drops a basket of rolls. You rush forward without thinking, help her scoop them up. She thanks you, smiles, and you feel like your spine might crack under the weight of it. That night, you write her a letter. You don't send it, but it helps. A little. Historians still argue whether guilt fades or just changes shape. Some say it calcifies. Others say it turns into obsession or worse, into justification. You're not sure what yours is becoming, but it has a name now. It has a face, and that's the worst part. You've made the consequences human. She was human. They both were. You no longer see them as symbols, you see them as people, and that means you're finally starting to see yourself. Not as a philosopher, not as a revolutionary, but as a man, a broken one. Maybe someday, a better one. But first, you have to keep walking. You dream of doors, heavy, splintered ones half rotted at the hinges. They all lead somewhere you don't want to go except one. It glows faintly, like the afterimage of a candle. You reach for it, and just as your fingers touch the latch, you wake. Your room is breathless, not quiet. Breathless, like it's waiting for something to happen. Like the walls know you're nearing a decision, and they're holding in a sigh until it breaks. Your shirt clings to you with sweat. You feel like you've been digging through the earth with your bare hands, every muscle sore, your mind scraped raw. You've lost track of time. It's evening again, or morning. Light filters through your curtains like it's a shame to be here. You lie in bed, blinking up at the ceiling. You think about her, the niece. You still don't know her name. You've watched her long enough that you probably should. You feel like you know her routines better than your own. What time she turns the shop sign to open, when she sweeps the front step. How she stares at the empty chair beside her, as if expecting someone to sit down and explain things. You imagine her asking, "Why did you do it?" And the worst part is, you still don't know. Mainstream historical fact. Dostoevsky himself, when writing Crime and Punishment, was unsure at first whether Raskolnikov should ever confess. In his early drafts, the story ends with silence. But then he rewrote. Added Siberia, redemption. Or at least the possibility of it. You get up, you wash your face, you put on clean clothes as if they might shield you. Today you're going to see her, not across the street, not behind a corner, face to face, your heart. Hammers a warning as you walk. Each step feels like it could split the pavement. You rehearse the conversation over and over. I knew your aunt. I was there. I'm sorry. None of them feel enough. Fringe tidbit. In some obscure Russian folk traditions, murderers who wished to cleanse themselves would walk backwards into a river at dawn, fully clothed, reciting the name of their victim until they vanished underwater. No one knew if they'd return. You reach the bakery. Your feet won't move. She's outside, brushing flour from her sleeves, completely unaware that the man watching her is the reason she has that look in her eyes. The one that says, "I don't believe in fairness anymore." You turn and walk away. Again, cowardice, probably, but also something else. The understanding that she doesn't need your confession to heal. Maybe she deserves it. Maybe she doesn't. But that's not for you to decide. You're not the judge here, you never were. You go back to Razumikin's. He opens the door and just sighs when he sees your face. You still haven't done it, have you? You shake your head. I think I'm trying to find the right version of myself to confess as, you mumble. That's not how it works, he says. You go as the mess you are. You slump onto his couch. There's a cushion with a suspicious stain. Might be blood, it might be beet soup. In this city, there's really no way to know. He hands you a drink, not alcohol. Something herbal and vaguely judgmental. You sit in silence for a while. Then you say it. I'm not special. He nods. Took you long enough. I thought I was above it. That I could calibrate morality. Make the tough call. Do something history would understand. Razumikin looks at you. History doesn't understand anyone, man. It barely remembers us. Historians still argue whether Napoleon's ego was a necessary evil or just an unrelenting narcissism in epaulets. Either way, you're no Napoleon. You're just you. You spend the night at Razumikin's, he insists. Says you're not safe. Alone. Not from others, but from yourself. The next morning, you go to the police. You don't stop this time. Don't loiter outside like a cigarette hoping to be lit. You walk in. The room is stuffy. Paperwork hangs in the air like a smog. A clerk looks up bored, blinks. Can I help you? You hesitate. The silence stretches so long it gets a wrinkle. Then you speak. I have something to confess. The clerk straightens. He gestures for someone else. A door opens. You're led into a room with peeling wallpaper and a desk that looks recently defeated in a duel with termites. You sit across from you as a detective. He doesn't look like he wants to be here either, but he listens, and you tell him all of it. Not just the facts, the thinking, the building theories, the justifications, the fever, the weight, the absurd certainty that you were acting on a higher. Plain, he doesn't interrupt. When you're done, he says nothing for a while, then, why now? You stare down at your hands. They stopped being characters, you say softly. Who? The victims. The detective nods slowly. Wait here, he says. You do for hours. You're processed. There's a cell. It smells like mildew and memory, but you sleep. Deeply. And for the first time in weeks, your dreams don't feature blood or doors or faces that blink at you accusingly. They feature nothing. Just stillness. Wind-down mode begins to settle in, though not officially. Over the next few days, they question you, measure you, test your sanity like it's a chemical solution. You don't resist. You answer everything honestly. It's a strange kind of freedom, being known finally. Word gets around Razumikin visits. He doesn't say much, but he brings you a copy of The Brothers Karamazov with a sarcastic note tucked inside. Maybe next time, just read this instead of reenacting it. You laugh. It surprises you. The niece never comes. You never expected her to. But in your head, you imagine her walking into the bakery each morning, sweeping the step, smiling at someone who holds the door, moving forward. You hope she is. In your cell, you begin to write again. Not theories this time. Letters. Apologies. Not mailed. Not yet. But real fringe tidbit. There's a legend of a Russian prisoner who wrote a poem every day of his sentence and buried them in the dirt under his cell. They were never found, but people still tell the story, as if believing it might make it true. You keep writing, and for the first time, you're not trying to explain why. You're just trying to say, I know. There's no great shift when the train begins to move, just a lurch, a hard jolt through the floor and into your spine, the kind that says, this is it. You sit by the window, wrists shackled but no longer trembling. Outside, the city starts to peel away like wallpaper soaked in rain. St. Petersburg blurs into woods and dirt roads and emptiness. That cursed skyline, onion domes and bell towers and broken brick, gets swallowed by fog, and still you stare, like you might never see it again. Spoiler, you probably won't. You're not going to Siberia in chains like some epic. This is slower, duller. A transport of the condemned, yes, but also the waking dead. You're bundled with petty thieves, a forger who won't stop humming, and two murderers who look way too comfortable, but none of them carry it like you do. That invisible cargo, theories, guilt, the ghosts of your own arrogance. You don't talk. Not until the fourth day. That's when she appears. Sonia. You blink thinking you've imagined her. But no, there she is, outside the train at a refueling station. Holding a bag with your name on it. They let her on for 5 minutes. 5 she uses every second. She presses your hand through the bars. Her eyes don't flinch. Don't look for the version of you she once knew. She just says, "I'm coming." Not now, but I will. You believe her. And suddenly your chest fills with something that might be hope, or at least a reason to breathe all the way in again. Mainstream historical fact. Exile to Siberia wasn't always lifelong. Some convicts could earn their return after years of labor and penance. It wasn't mercy. It was bureaucracy wrapped in mythology. Historians still argue whether such returns were symbolic more than real. The train chugs on, and so do you. Work camps in Omsk. Later, Tobolsk. You chop wood until your knuckles split and your palms develop topography. The air is dry enough to slice your lungs. Your sleep is light and dreamless. You miss even the nightmares. At least they meant you felt something. But over time, things change. You stop counting days. You learn the names of the other men. One of them used to be a violinist. Another can carve birds out of bone with terrifying accuracy. You're not friends, but you nod to each other now. And one morning, you wake. To silence, soft snow falling, no orders yet. No yelling, just white. And the thought creeps in, you're alive. Fringe tidbit. Some prisoners in Siberia secretly trained birds to send coded messages between camps. No one knows how many actually worked, but there's one story about a sparrow named Mikhail who made it over 40 miles and got a prisoner's poem into the hands of his sister. It's probably a lie, but a beautiful one, Sonia writes. She visits when she can. She brings worn books and little tins of honey and stories from the city that don't make you ache anymore. She talks and you listen. That's the new balance. You don't argue anymore. You don't try to explain your theories. She doesn't need them, neither do you. Instead, you ask about the niece. She tells you she's doing all right. Working at a school now. She doesn't know about you, Sonia says, quiet. You nod. Good. You serve your sentence. All of it. And when the time comes, you're released. But there's no triumphant walk home. No cheering crowd. No glowing. Epilogue. Just paperwork. A train in reverse. And a city you won't return to. You choose a quiet town somewhere between nothing and nowhere. It has a name you forget twice before it sticks. Sonia joins you. You rent a room above a bakery. The irony is not lost on you. There are chickens out back. A small library where you shelve books instead of theories. You still dream sometimes. But the doors are gone. The ghosts too. And in their place, silence. Real. Silence, not absence peace. Historians still argue whether redemption is possible after bloodshed, whether remorse is enough, whether it should be. You'll never know for sure, but you keep living like the answer might be yes, and in this life, that's enough. Now, the wind down begins. The snow outside falls softly, blanketing the world in white silence. The light in your room is low, golden and kind, casting gentle shadows that sway with the curtain's breath. You sit at the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, listening to the quiet around you, so still you can almost hear the soft heartbeat of the walls. You think of where you've been, not just in distance, but in weight. From that first fevered step into the pawnbroker's apartment, to the long, slow walk toward confession. From the feverish belief in being extraordinary, to the stillness of acceptance. And now, here you are. No longer running, no longer hiding inside your head, but grounded present. You glance at the window. A single flake clings to the glass before melting into nothing. You close your eyes. Breathe. Let the last fragments of tension unwind like threads slipping loose. You're safe now. You're not alone. And whatever dreams come tonight, they'll have softer edges, gentler light, a place to rest. Because for the first time in a long time, you've earned sleep. End of story. Sweet dreams.